Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. My name's Clayton Stark. I have only spoken about my business journey once before, and it went okay, I think. And I wasn't quite sure what the crowd was going to be like for this. Wasn't sure it was going to be small and intimate like this, which is what I actually prefer, or if it was going to be a little bit larger. But because it's small and intimate, I would encourage you guys to interject if I happen to not go in depth enough on a certain part of my story, or if you want me to elaborate a little bit more. So let's do that. Because I tend to get a little bit scatterbrained when I speak about my story, because it's been 11 years in the making, so I can kind of get all over the place. But I guess we'll start off with, I'm from the Detroit area. I grew up just all around cars, and grew up in just a very pretty basic middle class family. Like, we had enough for kind of everything that we needed and a little bit extra, but I was always fascinated with cars, and the area that I grew up in is known for cars. So I was growing up, my dad never really had a cool car until now, I guess. He has his hobbies and stuff, but growing up I always was obsessed with like how to get a cool car. So I knew that I wanted to achieve something that I didn't know how to achieve that. So went through high school, had a great time, and then I went on a 2-year LDS mission in Long Beach, California, which Long Beach has a really cool car community as well, very different style than Detroit. But had a great time on that mission. I learned a lot, learned how to sell, kind of the hardest thing to sell that there is, and learned how to connect with people on a more personable level. Instead of just selling to their face, you just get to know them and be their friend, which is a huge attribute of mine that I think is an important role, an important skill set that you should learn in entrepreneurship and business, is how to be personable. After my mission, I tried college, and did 1 semester and dropped out. Did not care for that at all. It didn't seem like really any of my classmates knew why they were doing what they were doing. They just were kind of there because it's the status quo. And I figured, I'm spending money on learning these things in this textbook that I'm not going to apply to my life. I might as well spend that money and time and effort to do something that'll make me money. But I promised myself that if I dropped out of college, I would just have to out-hustle everyone until I figured it out. Which I'll say I've technically been successful at. I've kind of rewired my brain to think that like a 40-hour work week is like a vacation. When you own a business, you blink and the next thing you know, the whole week's gone by and you've worked 90 hours. But it's all because you want to, which is really, really fun. And you're in complete control. You don't have to, but you want to, which is really cool. So I decided, at the time I was like 21, and I was like, you know what, I might as well give it a shot and go figure this out. And worst case scenario, I go completely broke and bankrupt, and then I move back in with my parents and kind of be at the same level as all my other friends in high school, because they were all dropping out of school and moving back in with their parents. So I was like, might as well at least go give it a shot. Side note, I'm a big snowboarder as well. Not so much anymore, but I was back then. So I was kind of familiar with Salt Lake, Park City, but I decided to move directly to Park City to snowboard and to open a business. And I figured I could do both of those there. Ended up being a great choice. I've made a lot of really cool connections in Park City. But yeah, I moved out with just my 2005 Ford Explorer, a mountain bike, some skateboards, and some snowboards, and was determined to make it work. So I got out here, I got a job at a front desk of a hotel. My very first paycheck, I believe, was like $600, and I bought a motorcycle, and because I always wanted one. That was like my first, I'll allow myself to be irresponsible here, and then we'll be responsible in 2 weeks. And loved that bike, it was really cool. But then my next paycheck, I believe, was another $600, and I was like, okay, I have to put this to use, I have to start a business. And that's pretty much all the cash I had, very, very little, which a lot of people can relate when they're starting off a business. You're not sitting on tons of cash, because you haven't figured that out yet. So I kind of was Googling and checking out YouTube and figuring out businesses that had low barrier of entry, that didn't cost a lot, but I could just pay with my time. and like kind of sweat equity right at the beginning. And I remember randomly meeting someone somewhere, probably through church, that started a window washing company. So I figured, how hard could that be? So I went to Home Depot and bought some squeegees and all that. Started a window washing company, and I guess some people could consider this a success, but I consider it a failure. I had about 3 clients doing that, and I hated it so much after those 3 houses that I was talking with Faith on the drive home, or drive here. I can't even remember what I even called that business. I had business cards, I had flyers, I started a Facebook profile, I was like marketing it, passing around. I couldn't even tell you what the business was called. I hated it so much. After the first, I was like, absolutely not, but I already had 2 others booked, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do these. These, I guess, make me a couple $100 to do the next thing. So could be a success because I actually kind of made money, but failure because I just absolutely hated it. And I'm just glad that I figured that out very quickly. With that realization, I kind of was on the same, like, I still had about $550 or so to invest in the next business startup. I was like, well, what do I like to do? And I noticed that on my days off when I didn't have anything going on, I would detail my car. I would just clean it out because I think having a clean car is like really nice mentally. So like, I'll just do that. So I started Googling it and finding out that there were detailing companies, there was mobile detailing companies. And back then there was like very little resources online for this kind of stuff. Like I remember watching probably like 90 or 95% of the videos on YouTube about detailing, and it was like a whole whopping 10 videos. There's like nothing. And there was like a TV snippet of some UK TV show about a guy called Miracle Detail in the UK that would charge $10,000 to detail a car. Whoa. And I was like, that sounds really cool. Like I could do that. Like pay me 10 grand, I'll clean your car as long as you want. So I thought that was really cool, and I was like, all right, I'll just wing this. So I spent my $550. I bought, I think it was like 250 business cards. I found on KSL a used power washer, and then Googled a car cleaning product supplier in Salt Lake and just walked in and said, what do I need? I got $375. And he hooked me up with some supplies, and then I started just passing business cards out. I remember, so one point I'm trying to make in this whole thing is that a lot of the times in life, you're just trying to wing it and you're just figuring out as you go. And I know that's how I learn the best. And you're gonna encounter this kind of like forever in business. Like every day is gonna be a new challenge. But the story to back that up is I remember getting my very first business phone call at client. They wanted 2 interiors done, which would make me about $300. And I allotted 8 hours to do it. Now I could probably get that done in like 3. But I remember showing up to the appointment, talking to the client, I have no idea what I was doing. And then I looked at the cars, the client went inside, and then it hit me that I had never actually done this before. But it was showtime. Like I had to do it because I needed to make that money. I'd already committed to being there. And I'd already bought the supplies. I was like, oh, I have to make this work. And then it occurred to me I didn't even buy interior cleaner. I had bought soaps and waxes and sponges, but I had nothing to clean the inside of the car with. So I had to quickly, think on my feet and figure out that problem. And that client has never called me back. But I made the $300 that day. I don't think they tipped me or anything, but that was the most I'd made in one day ever. So I knew I was kind of onto something. And I was like, if I could just like get that time of detailing those 2 interiors down to half, I could fit another 2, and then I'd make $600 in one day. That's my entire investment into this company, like already. So it gave me a ton of motivation, even though most people I mentioned that I was gonna be detailing cars kind of laughed or thought I wasn't serious. They were just like, oh, that sounds like a cool like hobby or whatever. But I saw the potential right from the get-go. And so then I worked at the hotel. I started detailing like here and there, like 1 car a week maybe, like real small. And then I determined I'm gonna be a full-time entrepreneur. I'm gonna go full-time self-employed and quit my job at the front desk of the hotel. And then about a week later was on the hunt for another job because I realized that there was no money coming in. So that's another pitfall that I ran into, that a lot of people think that you can go straight into business right away. But it takes some time. It takes some time for the business to self-sustain. So I got a job as a banquet manager at the ski resort, which killed a bunch of birds with one stone, like with one job for me. I was very strategic with how I positioned myself with this job and the business to really make it so that I could reinvest each and every cent from the details back into the business. I didn't want to take any money from the business because I knew if I did that, it wouldn't grow. Which was my theory. I didn't know that at the time. It was my theory. So I got a job at the ski resort doing banquets. So on the weekends, I took home all the extra food, so I didn't have to grocery shop during the week. I got a free ski pass, and then I would detail on my days off from there. And I did that for about 2 years. So I'd work about 50 to 60 hours doing banquets a week, and then I'd work about 20 to 30, depending on the week, clients doing the detailing. I did that for about 2 years, while I saved as much money as possible and reinvested into the business. So I bought a specific van for detailing. I bought the higher end equipment, the higher end website. I paid somebody to build a better website and just kept reinvesting that money and re-rolling it over. And then about 2.5 years into that, I had saved up a good chunk of money and was like, all right, I need to invest this back into the business, which was kind of the main goal of being in cars. Is I went out and bought a car that I definitely should not have bought. It put me into debt, but I knew that I could utilize that car to have something more in common with my customers, more in common with potential customers. So I decided to buy a first generation Porsche Cayman, which at the time was I think $30,000, and I put 10 down. That was all the money I had, and it was another situation with my parents. They said I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be getting into debt. But I knew that when I walked up to somebody on the street with a Ferrari or a 911, that I could say, "Oh, I just bought my own Porsche," and they take me a lot more serious, which ended up being 100% true. And that car purchase trajected my business more like into the growth. Like it did so good for my business, like way more than I thought. And I was just being a punk kid, like wanting the car. But that just shows like I didn't really know what I was doing. I took the chance, but it was a strategic chance. Every decision in business should be strategic. You should know kind of how it's going to play out in the best case scenario, but be prepared for the worst case scenario. That car, I owned it about 2 days and then went to my first Cars and Coffee event. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to a Cars and Coffee. It's just car enthusiasts get together, usually on a Sunday morning, and they just chat. Which is another huge thing that I'm a big advocate for, is networking. So I figured I have a car now, I have a car business. I'm gonna go to my local Cars and Coffee and network and try to get at least a few jobs out of it. And I ended up parking next to who is now one of my best friends. I didn't know him at the time. He had a Lotus Elise, and I had my Cayman. We parked next to each other, chatted, we were about the same age. Found out that he enjoyed taking photos of cars. We talked about cars for a while, and then we ended up becoming really, really good friends, just from a common interest. But that network relationship built into a huge business relationship. He's now the largest exotic automotive YouTuber in the world. And at the time he was just filming because it was fun. He was just filming cars. So you never know who you're gonna meet. And networking is extremely, extremely important in business. There's a saying that I like to say, well, it's very, very common saying, it's all about who you know. And I like to add on, I don't know if I've ever heard this from someone, or I don't know, but it's all about who you know and being somebody to know. Because if you don't have anything to provide, why would somebody know you? Why would somebody put the effort into knowing you? So at that relationship right there, when I met my friend James, I had something to provide. I was somebody to know. I had a small detailing company. I was really enthusiastic. I understood the value of networking and building the relationship, so I was willing to detail his cool car for free if I could get some photos for my website. Not that it was a fully transactional, like business transaction, it was a friendship, but if I just walked up to him and said, I like your car, we're friends now. Like, that's not providing him anything. So I was trying to be somebody to know, and I'd been working on that for like 1.5 years already. So it put me in a great position to be somebody to know for him, and then I wanted to know him because he had a cool car. So it was like a mutual transaction. So that's what, it's kind of like my slogans. It's life's all about who you know and being somebody to know. And that kind of puts some personal accountability on yourself to work on yourself today for next week when you meet somebody. You never know how that's going to play out. But that's kind of played a major role in my entire entrepreneurial career over the last 11 years, is being somebody to know and being personable and keeping that relationship alive. And it's opened so many doors. And I hope moving forward from today, it's going to continue to open doors, which is really, really cool. So after that, I kept detailing cars, kept building a relationship with my friend James, who was filming videos and taking photos, which it kind of goes hand in hand. And just kept getting to know more people here, more people there, ventured off, hired a couple employees here and there, and was just, every day, every month was a new thing that I didn't know how to do, various different challenges in business, and you just kind of determined this has got to keep growing, so I have to figure it out the best way I can, and then you get really good at troubleshooting over the years. Those challenges become easier and easier and easier and easier. And so I kept growing the business. About, I'd say about 4 years into it, that same friend sold his Lotus and bought a Lamborghini Gallardo, which at the time, social media and like just out and about, you never saw exotic cars. Like if you saw one, it was like unreal. So he bought this Lamborghini Gallardo, and it was just like amazing because I'd already built a relationship with him, and now I have access to this really cool car. And it was never about the cool car he potentially could buy, but it just was like a really cool benefit, I guess, of that network. And that car stretched him financially through the roof. Like he financed the entire thing pretty much, and it was all of his net worth into that car, and he had to make it work as well. So we were kind of building together, and he really wanted to get his car wrapped, which was like a new thing back then. It was like the new way of customizing your car, and he had reached out to a few businesses in Salt Lake who are still around today, and I'm friends with all of them. But like the cheapest quote he got was like $7,000 or something to wrap this car, which now did pretty reasonable for that car and that color and everything. But he did not have that. So my troubleshooting and figuring out scenarios and diving headfirst and figuring it out later kind of kicked in, and I said, well, let's just wrap it. Like, how hard can it possibly be? Like, they're humans in the wrap shop, they figured it out. Like, I don't know, let's figure it out. And it took like, 2 or 3 weeks of convincing him that the worst thing we can do is like break something and you can just buy another part online. It's not, and I'll fund it, like that kind of thing. Like, it was kind of like, I was bluffing because I was like, I don't really have money to replace your stuff, but let's do this. And we ended up, my very first car I ever wrapped was the Lamborghini Gallardo, and I wrapped it with Faith, my wife, and James. He helped out. Afterwards, it looked great from the outside. Overall, the install was very bad, but it looked great on videos and photos and for the internet. And at the time, that was a big deal for him. So saved him a bunch of money. I got to do a fun project and get hands-on with a Lamborghini, which is just a dream of mine. And then I thought, well, that wasn't terribly hard. Maybe I just offer that as well. Like, I don't know, I started offering detailing. I had no idea what I was doing. Maybe I started offering wraps. And then my second business, Summit Auto Lab, was kind of born, where we do automotive films. So we do vinyl wraps, window tint, and paint protection film, and some ceramic coatings as well. So I had the detailing company and a wrap shop, and I built those hand in hand for a while. And then got into, they were both growing, on their own. And then I got into media, social media as well, because my best friend was into social media as well. He kind of encouraged me to do that as well. So we dipped into social media, which kind of went hand in hand with our other two businesses. We could promote what we were doing in those businesses, make a little bit of side money. It would also provide us cool experiences to get out and about. So at the peak of our entrepreneurial career, we had 3 main businesses. So we had the detailing company, the wrap shop, and the social media business. Now, as you can probably imagine, you can get spread really thin, really fast running 3 different businesses, especially when they all need your full attention, which is kind of what happened. I think it was 2022, so we're not too far back now. We had all 3 companies going. This was our highest grossing year of all time. We had 8 employees detailing cars. I was trying to train one of those to wrap cars as well, while working full-time at each business. And then as soon as people left the shop, then we pulled the camera out. We would quickly shower because we just looked like death. And then try to film videos, and we did that for that entire year. And like I've been saying, we kind of just figure it out as we go. And I was in that rut of like, let's just keep going, building. And it really put into perspective that money and building a business is really great when that's the thing that you need to be doing. But that year we just like drove ourselves into the ground. Like looking back, that was my least favorite year, even though I made the most money. Because it was just like constant problems. I got no sleep. So it put into perspective the draw for money, or the pull of success. Back then when I first started was like the money. The money was like something you could count. Like I was this successful today. And then as soon as we kind of got a little glimpse of that, that one year we overworked ourselves, and then value the balance of life. Which I think is a really important lesson for myself, and I think most entrepreneurs were going to run into that at some point. And you will have to sacrifice that balance for a while to build. But I feel like our main goal, and something that I like to tell people, is like your main goal is to have fun. Like that's why you're in the business. You're doing it because it's fun. Like you want to build and make money, but you also, if you're working 22 hours a day, the money's pointless. Like you can't do anything with it. So that year was a pivotal moment for us, where we learned to kind of pull back a little bit, and find a sweet spot of our work ethic or efforts and our enjoyment out of that. And that's kind of been the last 2 years. We pulled back. We haven't hired anybody in 2 years. It's just been my wife and I, which really hindered our profit ability. Like our ceiling of making money is way lower now. But we've been able to really accommodate our wants and interests in life, like being able to travel a ton. And it's been really, really great. For example, last year, we thought it'd be really fun to buy a Mercedes Sprinter van and do the Sprinter camper van life. And I think a cumulative last year, we took 4 months off. And that is one of the benefits of owning your own business, is you can kind of schedule around your own interests. And that was one of my goals of that. So we were able to successfully do that. And I got more enjoyment out of that than making an extra $100,000 in a year. Because you have memories that last forever, and that was really, really fun. So that solidified our learning experience of, at some point, it's not all about money. It's about balance. Hey guys, how's it going? And that puts us kind of to where we are today. We have our detailing company for sale, officially for sale, for the last 2 years, ever since we decided to kind of take a break. We are still doing the wrap business. Moving forward, I've just been pulling the reins back, and I only do a couple projects here and there if they're of interest to me. And we've kind of stopped posting on social media, and we learned that was a huge benefit, like stopping that for a little bit. I do look forward to posting again in the future and building that back up, but not until I have the time. But the last 11 years have taught me so much. It's taught me how to hustle at the beginning, how to be very money conscious, and how to roll the money back into a business, how to grow that business, how networking is essential in growing that business, especially in that industry. You never know like who you're gonna meet that could play a role 2 years from now, which is really, really fun to me. I also learned that balance is really, really important, and that I personally enjoy seeing the business grow, but at a comfortable, controllable pace. And I plan on applying all those lessons that I learned over the last 11 years to the next 11 years, or 10 years, or 15 years. It's actually a really unique position in life, or timing right now, when I get to tell you guys the stories, because we actually have a potential buyer for our business. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but it's looking good, and that would mean by fall I would technically be unemployed, which is kind of the goal right now. I don't want to do anything right now, but I want to apply all those lessons in my network and really utilize those for a new business or multiple businesses. I'm not sure. I think I was talking before this meeting. It's really unique because I'm feeling all the emotions again that I did 11 years ago when I moved here. That I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting into. I had a finite amount of capital. It's more now than it was 11 years ago. But I haven't started a business from scratch and needed to in a long time. So I feel like I'm in a position that a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs are in currently. They don't know what direction to go in. They don't know how to utilize their network into a new direction. And I'm kind of relearning it again, which is really fun. But that kind of gets you guys caught up to date with my story and the lessons that I've learned. I have no idea how much time we've taken. Probably not enough. I tend to speak really fast. But I'd like to open it up to some questions. It could be anything about my story or lessons I've learned, or your own experiences and advice, anything like that. Anybody have questions?
I came in super late, right? But
Yeah.
You mentioned right when I was walking in that you are not doing social media outreach or stuff like that. Is that
Yes. So get you guys caught up to date. Over the last 11 years, I've been. I moved to Utah to open a business 11 years ago, and in the last 11 years, I've opened 3 businesses, or I ran 3 businesses. One is a detailing company, mobile detailing. One is a wrap shop, so car customization shop, and one is a social media business focusing on YouTube and car content. So I just briefly talked about the social media, but because we had a really good connection in that industry already, networking playing a huge role again, we were able to, I don't want to say this, I'm not going to toot my own horn or anything, it was pretty much all him that helped us out. We piggybacked off him, but we were able to reach, I think at our peak, it was like 187,000 subscribers, which was really fun for us. We would go to car meets and have people line up and sign autographs, which was nothing I'd ever thought I could ever do, is like have people want to see me, like talk to me or whatever, which is really cool. But just at the time, since we were spread so thin, that was ended up being the least financially viable business, and it took up a ton of time. It had a very high ceiling and potential. We just couldn't commit our time to that, so we ended up taking a break from social media. It was supposed to be a short break, but it ended up being, we started that break 1.5 years ago, and we haven't ended the break yet. So that gets you caught up to date, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What was your 5-year plan and your exit cap goal?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so, that's amazing. That was the whole point, what I was gonna talk about, and I completely forgot. When I started the business, I remember learning that it's important to set goals. Set goals that will push you really, really hard, but set goals that are achievable, theoretically. I didn't wanna start my business and say, within 5 years, I want to make $500 million. Because I knew that wasn't gonna work from an initial $500 investment washing cars. Like, that just wasn't gonna work. So the goal that I had was, I want to buy an exotic car. Like, that's what I want to do. That'd be like a childhood dream of mine. And at the time, car prices were way lower than they are now, like significantly. So I went on my typical morning routine where I went on Auto Trader and just looked at cars like all morning. I set the goal that by the time I was 27, so that'd give me 6 years. So I figured, like, everyone does 5 years, I'll give myself 6. Just to be a little bit more lenient on myself. I was like, in 6 years, I was very specific on the wordage too. I want to be able to buy a Ferrari 355 manual. That was like the specific car at the time. Because those were going for about 70,000 at the time. Those now are about 400,000. So a little bit still achievable. Now it's my next goal. Maybe I work towards that still again. But so I was specific with my wording, and my goal was to be able to buy. Because I was very aware that in 6 years from now, I might be able to utilize that money in a way more efficient way, but I had still achieved the goal. Like, I could go buy it, but if I needed to spend the money elsewhere, I could. So I didn't specifically hold myself to buying a specific car at a specific time and made myself do it even if it didn't make sense. But that was like my biggest driving goal. Some smaller goals was I wanted to be self-employed. Like I think that would be like a really fun thing and have that cover all of my expenses and hobbies and things like that. But yeah, my main goal was by the time I turned 27, I wanted to be able to own an exotic car. And I think it was 2 or 3 months before my birthday. I was 26, almost 27. We ended up buying a, what year was it? 2007 Ferrari F430, which was cool. It was a great car. I achieved my goal right at the very end, which was awesome. It was right on time. And that was very motivating. And just like I was mentioning there at the end, I'm put back into the scenario kind of at the starting line again, here pretty soon. And I'm starting to think about goals again. And I hadn't set a business goal in a very long time because my business is very lucky and I'm very blessed that I got the ball rolling and the ball just took off like a big snowball. I had to do very little to keep it going, which I'm very, very lucky for, but I got really rusty at the vision hustle and the goal hustle. So I'm starting to relearn that again. It was a great question.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah. What was there was a 2-part of that. What was your 5-year goal and then?
And what was your exit cap? Like, well, what was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna sell it for, or like, this is what like I put it out for sale for, and then.
Oh, sure. So my thoughts and my reasoning behind selling the business was that I had achieved all my goals. I had learned about myself that I don't really thrive off of running teams of employees. I thrive off of doing things myself, which is, I'm trying to change that over time, but right now my business needs a leader, a team leader, and staffs of people, and that's not something that I want to do. So that was a determining factor of like, this might be the end. And then once we made the decision to sell, the typical business thing is like 3-year net income or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I forget.
3x multiplier.
Yeah, 3x multiplier. Yes. I dropped out of college. I don't know these terms. So it's 3x. So I was like, all right, cool. I came up with a certain number, and I ended up mentioning that number to a few people. Some people thought it was way too low. Some people thought it was way too high. So I was like, okay, I need to put more thought into this. And I really took into account. I was really honest with myself about what my business was, where the value was. It's a owner-operated business with currently no employees and no real estate. So it can't be worth that much. So I ended up pulling the reins back on that. And I also realized, who is my potential buyer? My potential buyer is someone who is possibly in the industry already, knows what they're doing, is not sitting on mountains of cash, because I wasn't sitting on mountains of cash. I've been doing it 10 years. So then I really pulled the reins back. I really want the new owner to be set up for success. I don't want to bury them in debt right from the get-go, because I know how hard it is to transition working areas and clients and things. So we've felt comfortable doing a 6-month ROI. So at our current work ethic and our current
Earning capacity.
At our current income, the new buyer should be able to make his purchase investment back in 6 months. And I felt like that was very, very fair. In fact, possibly cutting a lot out of my end of the deal. But I want to see the business succeed. I want to see it keep going. I want, 5 years from now, I want to look it up and see what they're doing. And that's enough money for us to have 6 months or be frugal and have a year to really figure out what we want to do next. That was my
Your
thought process through it, yeah.
Are you retaining any equity at all, or
No.
you just?
I want to be done with it, yeah. I want cars to be a hobby again. Yeah. Great question, thank you. Any other questions?
First of all, super cool story.
Thank you.
Really interesting.
Hopefully it all made sense and
Yeah.
was smooth. I
Well,
tend to jump around in my brain.
It did. So I don't really have any like specific questions, but kind of going off that, your clients, were they mostly return or new clients? I would assume like with wrapping it's different than detailing.
Very different.
And with someone buying your business now, you have a book of customers that view you as the business and maybe wouldn't be sold to. Like, how do you
Great question.
do all that?
Yeah, so I took that into account while I was like being honest about myself and like valuing my business.
Uh-huh.
Luckily, I've had so many employees in the past. I think probably like 30 something employees over the last 11 years.
Sure.
So a lot of my clients don't know who I am in the detailing world,
Okay. Interesting.
which is better to sell because
Yeah. Sure.
you know, somebody else could show up and be like, yeah, my name's Clayton, whatever,
Yeah,
and they don't know.
company name, right?
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah.
So that is a good thing about my detailing company.
Okay.
Now, it is a very bad thing about my wrap business.
Right.
My wrap business is 100% me and my skills in my hands.
Right.
So the value is me, so I can't sell it for anything. So that's why I'm selling just my detailing company. I did not want to put somebody in a position to take over my wrap brand and then have 0 clients. And I've been very open. A lot of people have reached out to me to buy the detailing company for the wrap business, because the wrap business is the sexy, hot business right now. Everyone's trying to get into it. There's great margins. It's cool. Like you're like working on really cool cars. And I've been super brutally honest with them. I was like, you're way better off starting your own.
Just doing your own thing. Yeah.
Because you buy my business for even like $10,000. You're already $10,000 in the hole, and you have to go find new clients. So it's like doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
So the real value is in my detailing company. And now you said how many are repeats, how many are new clients. That has drastically changed over the years.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned, as soon as I got the snowball going, the town that I'm in is its own little like mini economy of Park City. And you said you live in Park City, so you know.
Yeah.
Park City is very unique, very different than the Valley. As soon as you kind of like prove that you take this business seriously, the locals just run with it. So I consider myself lucky, but also now that I'm trying to sell, it was a bad thing, is I have not done customer acquisition in like 8 years.
Yeah.
It's only answering the phone. I've never called anybody for business in like 8 years, which is like, sounds like an amazing thing. But I also never thought it was important to keep track of any information. So I never kept track of any clients. Because like, why would I spend an hour at the end of the day saving all their info when I'm never gonna reach out to them? They're just gonna call me when they need me. Which now, potential buyers are like, where's your book of clients? And it's only 2 years long now, since we realized that we needed to keep track of that. So that did kind of bite us in the butt now. But nowadays it's summer and winter fluctuate, but summertime is more, it's like 60 or 70% reoccurring customers.
It's 60-40, like 60% return,
40 new. And then in the winter, because we have positioned ourselves to be number one in Park City, it's crazy demand, we just take the cream of the crop in the wintertime to make our lives easy. So in the wintertime, it's pretty much like 90% reoccurring. Clients that we know have warm water and a nice garage. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Cool.
How many customers do you guys service in the summer and the winter?
Daily?
It sounds like you guys are always busy.
Yeah, 24/7.
Yeah.
We're as busy as we want to be, which is a unique position to be in.
Wow.
Demand is through the roof. If I had a staff of 10 people with equipment and everything ready to go, and they were ready to work tomorrow full time and had my quality, they'd be working full time.
I'd say like during the year of 2022, when we had 6 to 8 employees, we were averaging about 15 cars a day.
Yeah.
And we were booked out over a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So demand is just insane. But the issue we ran into is we found that we like to be people's friends, and because that's my networking background, I like to be people's friends and try to be a benefit to them. That doesn't necessarily turn out to be a great employer-employee relationship.
Yeah.
Our employees ended up becoming our friends, and then would slack off, and then wouldn't take our criticism effectively, and then it would build up all this tension if they are not doing what I want. And I learned I just don't like doing that. So that put us in that position. But at our peak, we were doing like 15 cars a day.
That's great.
And that's like full details. That's not just like rinse them off or anything.
Wow.
And now it's just my wife and I. We do anywhere from, if it's a light day, like I think tomorrow we're doing like 3 cars. Today we did 4.
I'd say it averages between 4 to 8.
4 to 8 cars a day. Yeah, Monday through Friday. We try to take a weekend off, which never ended up being off. You just do something else. You have somebody else hit you up, and come by Saturday, things like that. But we've been very fortunate to be in the position we're in. It just that every position is, like I've been mentioning, is like a new challenge. Like right now, it's like, well, what do we do? Like, we're trying to sell the business. I've never done this before. Like, how do we I've never sold a business before, so I'm learning all the legalese behind everything, and structuring a contract and things. So the entire journey of business ownership and entrepreneur is a mystery, really. You just figure it out as you go. And you hope you're prepared. But if you're not, that's okay. You'll just learn faster.
Are you 100% mobile?
No, we do have a brick and mortar shop. I got the brick and mortar shop specifically for the wraps, because that needs to be a climate controlled area with good lighting. But now that I'm not doing as many wraps, I do like one a month maybe. Any one of our detailing clients that doesn't have a good setup, like they live in a condo or they're staying at a hotel or something, they can bring it to our shop and we can detail there. And our brick and mortar shop's in Park City, or right outside, right by the Jordan Hall Reservoir.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions?
That's crazy. Give it up for him.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you guys. Hopefully you learned something.
Clayton, that was awesome, dude.